What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. Apologies for being a bit slow on the videos from this update, however I wanted to take some time to make sure that I have fully explored the frames and am bringing you the best builds that I can. So on the topic of today's video, it is a frame that has a bit of a cult following, the topic of many memes about Prime trailers. It is of course the great puddle himself, Hydroid Prime. Hydroid has always been a bit of a Marmite frame. Those who loved him, which admittedly were a fairly small number, really liked what he could do. However, for the general population, he never really fit a niche, with there being better loot frames out there in Necros and arguably Korra, and some of his abilities like the puddle not really fitting the highly mobile game that Warframe has always been. So he's been the perfect option for a rework for some time now. So along comes Abyss of Dagath and a whole ton of quality of life changes, and of course that all awaited rework for Hydroid. So what have they changed on him? Well, he gained a new passive which effectively allows corrosive procs to reach 100% strip again, meaning that corrosive operates a lot like the old corrosive again, aka actually good, and turns him into one of the best anti-armor frames in the game. Combine that with the brand new third ability replacing his puddle, and he will tear through crowds of enemies with ease, although he does have a couple of drawbacks. Let's really quickly take a look at the abilities and what they do now. First ability, Tempest Barrage, has a couple of changes, all of which make it more effective and less clunky to use. Cast it to rain down water cannon shots on the area where your cursor is pointing, dealing corrosive procs on any enemy caught in its area of effect. The charge mechanic is gone, and the corrosive procs that it used to provide are just a part of the standard ability now. Second ability, Tidal Surge, is also unchanged. You turn yourself into a wave of water to charge forward. It cleanses yourself of status procs, and it will pull any unfortunate enemies caught in your tidal wave along for the ride. This deals a small amount of damage and a number of corrosive procs based on how far the enemies are pulled along in your wave. Third ability is Plunder. That's the brand new ability. Casting this ability will convert stacks of corrosive procs on enemies in the view of the camera into armor for himself, and a large corrosive damage buff to weapons and abilities, and a further boost to corrosive status chance. Converting 10 stacks of these corrosive procs will not only fully remove armor from the target, that removal is also permanent. Fourth ability is Tentacle Swarm, which had a minor change. It removes the annoying ragdolling of enemies, which made them impossible to shoot before. Casting this ability will throw a load of tentacles where your cursor is aiming, lifting any enemies caught in the ability into the air, dealing damage and inflicting corrosive status procs on them. So this is a real high level look on how these abilities actually work. How are we going to build Hydroid to make the most out of them? Well, this is a 2 Umbral Former build, running all 3 max rank Umbrals and adaptation for survivability, and also that gives us a chunk of power strength. Rage is going to convert damage into energy, working with our helmet ability, which is Nourish, replacing Tidal Surge, and that's going to be our efficiency mod effectively. Prime Sure-Footed means we're never going to get knocked down, growing power for more power strength when we're doing status procs, and we are doing many of them. Arcane Guardian for armor, and Arcane Blessing for more health. They're really pretty simple choices, to be perfectly honest. But then we have the most interesting part of the build, and that is that it is a double augment build. The first augment is Rousing Plunder, and that's going to be on here at all times. That not only increases your max armor and your damage bonus you can get from the ability, but also uses it to heal yourself and allies, all within affinity range, which is an incredibly strong augment, and allows us not to rely on Gloom for once, which is actually rather glorious. Then the final augment is very situational, I feel. If you're focusing mostly on, well, combat, you are using Tempest Barrage for your status procs. I would run Viral Tempest for the additional viral procs on your barrage, and that is going to further boost your damage output. If you're going to rely more on the Tentacle Swarm for your status procs, or if you're wanting to run Hydroid as a super tanky but also pretty fun to play loot frame, obviously Warframe is loot frame, then switch out the Viral Tempest for Pilfering Swarm and just loot to your heart's content. In terms of the Archon Shards though, because of the large amount of armor that is given by Plunder, you're much better off relying on a bunch of blue shards giving you extra health. If you do want to run a build which is running the Pilfer Droid, using Pilfering Swarm, and you're relying on your tentacles for status procs, I would drop one of those blues for a yellow and throw a little cast speed on there. So that's the abilities and the build. How about how to play him? Well, he's actually pretty easy to play. Use his abilities to spread corrosive procs around, as many as you physically can, cast your 3 to absorb those and convert them into damage and armour, and then just slaughter the world, while keeping Nourish up at all times for energy. He's honestly incredibly simple to play, and when it comes to weapon combinations, these are just as important as the frame. I would recommend any weapon which throws out a lot of status procs, most specifically corrosive procs, since for the most part those are the only procs that matter for making Hydroid work to his max. When I say that, there is a little bit of a caveat. For almost all content this is the way to go. However, at around level 150 in Steel Path or 250 non-Steel Path, you're actually going to get more mileage out of going viral if you're attempting to really push his time to kill. This is kind of a niche situation though, so in almost all content you're reasonably going to be doing, the corrosive procs are going to be the biggest bang for buck. In the footage in the background, I'm using what might be the perfect weapon for the new Hydroid, especially since it relies on tentacles, the Ocucore with the new Sentient Surge mod, which, with the damage buff stacked up, absolutely mows through armoured, or, well, formerly armoured enemies like butter. Which leads me on to my thought on the rework. Is Hydroid actually good now? The answer is absolutely yes he is. Admittedly, he does have a bit of a niche. His niche is armoured enemies. All of his abilities tie into corrosive, or dealing with armour, or anything like that, so in terms of all of his abilities, he does struggle slightly against unarmoured or shielded enemies. However, when it does come to those armoured enemies, he is an absolute powerhouse. Combine him with the right combination of weapons, he can absolutely shred entire groups of Steel Path enemies in seconds. He's simple to play, he doesn't take a lot of setup to do his shredding, and in addition to that, he is monumentally tanky. When you have a fantastic health pool, and you take Arcane Blessing into account, huge armour when you add Plunder into the mix, he is incredibly hard to die on. There is a little bit of an argument, and I have seen this a bit, and I kind of do feel it a little bit myself, that he kind of lost a little bit of his flavour, something that makes him truly unique. He does feel a little like a super effective gun platform, but at the same time, he absolutely is an S tier frame when played right and used in the right situations. He's not a key which fits all locks, but the locks he does fit, he does incredibly well. I had an absolute blast playing around with the Hydroid. Honestly, finding a reason to go back to Ocucore, of all things, is such a good time, especially when combining it with a frame that is so good like Hydroid. He's well worth the investment into the format and the Archon shards. You are not going to regret that. So I hope you enjoyed my look at the new and improved Hydroid. I will have more videos coming in the near future. However, for now, many thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I shall catch you in the next video.